Thanks for joining us today. I'm Reagan Sonnabend. If you're new to the channel, I am a small business owner, entrepreneur, real estate investor, and in our interview series, I like to revisit friends and colleagues that I've gotten to know over the years that have impacted me and that have had a really great story that I'd like to share. And today, not only do I have the pleasure of catching up with my friend Stephanie Leese, who I met her as Stephanie Leese, now Stephanie Leese Emrich, but we're actually at the Allerton Hotel, which is where we first met in 2000. So we had the luck of being able to be here on site, and we're both local. So really excited to catch up. Thanks for joining today.
I couldn't think of anything better.
Really interesting story to share. And, what stands out to me is, yes, we had an amazing experience here together. We had a wonderful team. We all, I think, got immersed in the history of this place and how powerful it is, not only being on the Magnificent Mile, close to the lake, close to the John Hancock building, but also just the history of, when this building was first, part of the skyline here, the Tip Top Tap on the 23rd floor where we are was truly, it stood out and it was so different. And of course, you had the opportunity of being here during the construction and part of that opening crew. I came a handful of months later. But I think what I really am excited to share beyond that is what your journey has looked like, what you've done since then. And when I think of, entrepreneurs, and of course you're an author now as well, a few times over, which is amazing. But what is it that inspires people to kind of go from the comfort of a W-2 and that regular paycheck and health insurance and the 401k and all of those things to take a risk and to become an entrepreneur and to lead in a different way? And I think of even back then, you were kind of starting to do that as an adjunct professor. So tell a little bit about kind of what inspired you to kind of go out on your own.
Well, first, a little bit of history about this place and I think when there's something new, there's a gravitational pull that says, I want to be part of something new. It's the staying power and the momentum for me that we all said yes to the same thing. And it was a sort of a sacred time in Chicago. There was a lot of new with the artful cows on parade. There were ping pong tables on every corner. It sounds like a circus, but it was a well orchestrated, beautiful theme song of yes. And the city's theme, our motto is I will. And you're an I will person, Reagan, and as one myself. And it just seemed like the yes factor was so in place. And the fact that about 25 of us are still friends and colleagues 25 years later.
Amazing.
Is extraordinary.
It is.
Our May 3rd Society, which is the date of when we opened the hotel in 1999, is still intact. And we'll gather here, walk the halls, and just look at the gorgeous Renaissance Italian brickwork, etc. So that, I think, leadership, that template for me started early in my grandfather's hotel outside of Disney World. And I know Disney is part of your product line and how you learn to view the world. And with Granddad's property, I learned that exceptional service, there's no price to it. You can't put money to it. And that has always been a baseline of any curriculum I've designed. And also just the way I feel like I conduct my own business. You can't be separate from yourself. So from the W-2 standpoint to becoming an entrepreneur, when we were here, I didn't have a car. I rode a bicycle and took a lot of trains.
I remember that.
Yes. And I taught on the south end of Chicago every Wednesday afternoon. The general manager, Peter, our beloved Peter, said yes to me being able to teach down there. I created a body of work, and it was designed as a syllabus. I had never called it that, but 25 years ago, that has stuck. And those choices and those honoring all the students as clients, if you will, in the classroom became a mantra, became a modus operandi for how to treat people in the classroom. That body of work stood up when the Chicago Public Schools said, we need someone to organize a classroom setting for our principals. Will you design teaching? So I think once we create something as a bedrock And the more we're able to use it and have a gift of energy and creativity and possibly being a little clever is making sure that that holds up for the next, so you're not constantly reinventing.
Sure.
You are creative. I feel like everything is still bespoke or curated for the moment and for the audience, but the baseline of talent and other things that I've been able to provide for other businesses has been predicated when we started here.
Wow. It's really funny. The older I get, the more I find myself going back to themes and things that I learned earlier on. And you're right. I mean, service is as foundational as it gets. And, it's funny because for myself personally, I find myself back in hospitality in a different way. I started in hotels, but then in the late 90s, I first had the opportunity to work in corporate housing, which, was a little bit of a right turn just so that I could have normal business hours while I was working on my MBA.
Yes.
At the time, I never thought that I would end up coming back to it. We were housing Y2K consultants at that time. That was right before I came here. And, now I find hospitality being really important again as I'm back in corporate housing, dealing with households in transition.
Sure.
And, all of those themes, and it's making people feel comfortable and at home. But when I think about, and we'll take a look at your books and kind of what you've done since then a little bit later, but when I think about that concept of service and the way that you apply that to the students that you really have served, and, how you've pulled all of those things together. But also, when you kind of showed me some of the items that you'll show here in a bit, you've brought your artful eye to what you've done with the, what would you call that? Like a top kind of.
It is.
That you
It's
put
a
together.
spin the top.
Spin the top. So anyway, it's just really interesting to see how different things from our past kind of come together in our output and what we're doing and how we interface with the world. And, when I think of, what you've done, and since we first met with the Allerton, teaching about service, being a leader amongst women business owners, things like that, I think you found your own unique brand of how to be able to serve others. And it's amazing.
It is a brand. And thank you. Gosh, coming from you, that's giant. I think our country has finally realized the value of service. It used to be, the French waiter, the Swiss, they always knew what we could have been doing. But since we're not necessarily manufacturing as much really anywhere, it's a service globe. It's not just a service nation. And so when we commoditize and strategically look at service as a product, no matter what we're selling, this fine leather, that's part of it, but stitching this fine leather and the process and inviting how these beautiful walls came to be, letting people in to see how things are made with an elegance of service is also part of the mix. I think for a while it had to be separate. How things were created was separate from showing. Now we have guests that want to cook in the kitchen alongside the chef. Never, right? No, that was a locked door, and now we can do that. So right time, right place. And I think being able to say yes when there were maybe either personal insecurities, like, am I really right for this? A lot of us have the imposter syndrome.
Oh, everyone, I think.
Am I ready for this? You must be, because you got the call. And when people say, you're my first call, that is nirvana to me. And then I feel need to deliver on that. And the strengths finders of win others over. Thank you for writing that, you great people, because I went backward in my career. After this great passage, Reagan, I went not backwards in several ways, but I wore a uniform again in hotel land with my name, making an hourly wage versus salary, walking in the back door instead of the front, and I became a concierge because I missed the guests.
I understand that. Yeah.
It's compulsory. If you're on this earth to serve other people in a very genuine and unique way, one can decide to go backwards. And at age 40, I did that. It was the best laboratory because now I have stories and connections, and that's really what life is about, stories and connections. What else are we here for?
Sure. I love it. Well, and it's interesting that you say that kind of need to fulfill something that maybe was missing. And as you were talking about service, you're right. It was rare back when we first met, but I think it's even more rare today, because when I think about, we go to a restaurant and so often it's like they just hand you something to do your credit card yourself, or if you have your food to go, they bring you a box. I don't need to be catered to, but if you're going out to a nice meal, there's an experience that you're looking for, and I think that is largely absent today.
It is.
What you're doing and cultivating, and the way that you're teaching others and leading, I think is so important to kind of go back to what really matters and what people appreciate.
Well, that was the design of the company name, Service Speaks. And then all my consulting friends say you need to add a third word and call it solutions. So there we are. Service Speaks, because it's about letting the service do the speaking, but it's also letting us come up with the right words, whether we're the general manager or, as frankly, in hospitality, we know without the proper back of the house team members, they are, to me, pretty much up there. Without those team members that clean and organize and get us on the front areas more pronounced, I think exposing those people to understanding the why a clean room matters, letting them stay at the competing 4- and 5-star hotels is a model. I take my clients on field trips. We will go to a certain technology company and I'll let them feel like, why are these people buying? When I go to a certain store, I walk in for a charger and I leave with a new, computer, right? How did they do that? There's some magic and some strategy. So that is really what Service Speaks is. We've worked with, and I say we for your audience, it's me, myself, and I. I never wanted a big fancy office, and I don't pay people, but I might bring on colleagues in the spirit of everything we, because let's face it, I can't be everything to all of my customers. If I need a specialist, I have no qualms about inviting others to the table. So we get that. So Service Speaks Solutions has been honored to work with government in places you wouldn't think, car dealerships. I love working high-end retail because it's a pretty place, but I also know that is also a high-pressure cooker. And so to work in a variety of cultures, we've worked all over the world now, too.
Wow, that's amazing. So talk a little bit about what your journey looked like after deciding to leave the comfort of W-2 world, and kind of where you ventured first and how it's grown over time. Well,
the colors used to be orange, which is a lovely palette, and deciding that it would become Service Speaks with a block, Verdana font. From the branding perspective, I did not realize how big of a name, perhaps, frankly, that I was, because my father used to tell me it's not who you know, it's who knows you. It is so true, because Reagan would follow you no matter what hotel, and all due respect to our lovely alma mater here, once they understand somebody knows what they're about, they will follow you. It just depends on what you're promoting at that time.
Sure.
So October 1st, 2010, 15 years ago, I started Service Speaks.
Wow.
And in that pathway was deciding colors and deciding an array of how I would put myself out there. I would have a pile of books as a bibliophile, and a very geeky kid who read everything. When it was lights out, I had my lights on, my flashlight, reading some of the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew. But I was pretty much into encyclopedias. I wanted information. And right time, right place now, right? And so I would promote other people's books, and a speaking professional said, that's really nice of you, but you have your own style and your own voice.
Wow.
It was a wow. It was such an eye-opening moment, because I didn't realize that I really did. And then in crafting, dusting off those 15-hour courses for the Chicago Public Schools, I elevated those and sidetracked as well to a more commonly required, what do people need? So on the American Hotel Association, I became the national instructor for the Certified Guest Service Professional.
Wow.
So it wasn't my content, but I got to own this and certify over 500 individuals over time to make sure that they understood and become certified guest service professionals. That is a tip to the wise. Anytime you can own your own product, that's licensable, that's very efficient. But anytime you take a bigger entity and become part of their magic carpet ride, that was the perfect blend.
Love it.
And then someone gave me a plant. What does that mean? She arrived at my doorstep and said, "This is an amaryllis." And I thought, "A what? And I've seen these at Christmas, at the holidays, right? And then another friend that same afternoon saw me in the National Speakers Association Zoom and said, "We need to talk. You need to do a TED Talk." And I thought, okay, I can put all this together. The credibility of speaking in large and important audiences, there is nothing like it. So I have the body of work, I have the audience, I have the TED Talk, which over 1,000 people have watched, not millions, but you never know.
That's
somebody,
an accomplishment.
Well, you have to honor all the people that brought you forward. You approaching me about this opportunity. Reminding ourselves about who got us where we are is so important. It's drop the little pieces of corn for me, the Reese's Pieces like E.T. Something that gives us that validation about how we used to be. It's like why we go to reunions, why we get together for weddings, funerals, all the beautiful things in between. That's about hospitality. Business reminders are how did we get there? Hence the third book that I just released 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
It's a little bit precocious to say it like that, but I think there's texture when people want to know, is this a first and where does that land? And this is the first official business book.
Okay.
And I've Got Your Back is the prelude, and then the subtitle after is Words of Wisdom for Today's Women Leaders.
Oh, I love that.
Well, we're already in second printing. This is, yes, it's exciting because I think people are hungry for connection, number one. I authored this with the idea of honoring 33, I love the number 3, 33 women, my mentors, spheres of influence, people I've known from first grade, people who wear hats. One wears a pageant crown, the other wears an Episcopalian church mitre, the bishop hat, literally the walks of life from stem to stern, and inventors and educators and all over. And then they chose on their own one word that defines their leadership style.
Okay.
From that word, Reagan, and maybe I'll have to think about how I can factor you into how I would paint your picture, is on 2 pages is give the following: our connection and how we met, but springing forward, their modifications, how they've adapted, if there were any stories about how gender-specific things might be challenging to them. And overall, it's a quick read. It's 75 pages. That's my secret sauce. Unless you're writing the great American novel or, you're Lin-Manuel Miranda looking at Hamilton as a template for a future musical, which I'm not sure we're there yet. Preceding that, I wrote the book about my father's life as a reflection of he being a football coach and me as his daughter. And that was more biographical. And I think when we do that, we get to go very deeply within and understand a little bit more who we are and how our family supports us, loves us, maybe walks off in a different way when we were looking for answers and our family might not have been that perfect resolve, but I was able to find that with other people through the family gifts. And the book prior to that is just my company name, Service Speaks, but service still speaks, a constant in a changing world. So that's currently the trifecta. And I love to talk about book publishing and the decisions one makes when you're on this journey.
Wow. Well, I mean, everything you said there, it all comes together in such an amazing way. But then when I think about, aside from authorship, your teaching. Let's talk about what that part of the journey looks like and how that's impacted and maybe fulfilled a need in you to help develop young people.
Oh, it's for me, it's dessert. It's everything foundationally and everything that I believe I was called to do. The other part, hospitality, was a call for action from deciding to live out, the fanciest part of life and luxury arenas. But at the core, I think about who we are is a teacher for me, and I have a lot to share. It's like when I was a concierge, I would share with you about the city of Chicago and match world involvements about how people get to where they are and where they might go. For teaching, it's unending. It is a relationship that at the very core begins in the classroom and can manifest its way into a life journey. I've had over 1,000 students. I counted one day meticulously where they are, where they went, what they could be doing. That is a 25-year teaching career.
Wow.
Now as full-time faculty at Roosevelt University, the only Roosevelt in the United States, there's an opportunity to create and shape different styles of life. We are 95% admission rate, which I think is a delicious way to say please and welcome. As a social justice-oriented school and philosophy, 80 years now, we have welcomed many different styles of learning, and I am an experiential teacher.
Love that.
I love it that my syllabi get us to go behind the scenes at corporations that I design. The school is lovely, but they're not creating my syllabus for me. In our wine and beverage course, we do tastings of tea and wine and celebrate the finer things in life. I think the best outcome from all of that is that people grow, and they grow with their teachers. And if you're available to do that, and the hope of tomorrow for me is the next generation and the emerging leaders. And one of my friends said, yeah, you could probably go anywhere in the world right now and stay at their hotels and dine in their restaurants.
Wow.
That's lovely to think about, but it's nice to know that there's a globalization of education that so many of us have stuck through Y2K that we addressed here, through 9/11. The idea of curriculum design as a professor is very much like a trainer. I think if you can train and you can educate and entertain people in one moment, you can also give them something to think about, critical thinking. I'm known in my classrooms for getting people to stand up and do things that they never really agreed to or that they thought would be part of the story. And whether it's Halloween and wearing a specific costume or inviting the next generation to speak in front of other people, put down their devices, and have this style of conversation is a gift. And this is required in so many of my classes. The personal fulfillment is gained when 5 years after their graduation, which I attended and sat in the front row with my own cap and gown, was learning about what they found out in the classroom. And that there is no salary and no compensation that can be perfectly described in opening that email or that letter or that voicemail and hearing how you changed my life. Oh my gosh. As someone who did not bring children into the world, this is the giant. This is the give back.
I love that. And, as you talk about your approach and experiential learning, and, even when we were talking earlier, talking about coming here and doing high tea and, having students experience those things, I realized that you were so far ahead of the experiential learning that folks are doing today. Maker spaces people have been talking about for, 10 years now probably, and all these different classroom design things. But it's the same thing that they're doing through that, and so much of the experiential learning that's what really resonates, and I think back even, as we watch the History Channel, they make things so rich and so different than what I recall experiencing when I was in a history class way back when. But touching, feeling, experiencing, all of those things, tasting, smelling, all of these things that you're introducing your students to, that's what kind of, evolves that experience and lets them kind of touch and feel what they may want to do and explore.
And stretching boundaries.
Yes.
we had the NASCAR pacer car driving down Lakeshore Drive with 3 of my students. They all signed perfect waivers, and it just was the right time here in Chicago, a project I was involved with the Art Institute of Chicago.
Oh, wow.
I think, partnership or perish has always been a subset of how I look at life. You have something that I might enjoy, and I might have something that might help you. And I think creating those bridges it's a soft spot. And I've been able to help other people genuinely through that because I have a museum to show you. I have a hotel to show you. I have a classroom to share with you. If you come, you will also experience what today's leaders and what tomorrow's consumers and everything that they might have at their opportunity. And I feel that when they wear the shoes, when they walk it, it's much more real.
Wow, amazing. So when I think about all of these things that you've talked about, the authorship, the teaching, the kind of exploring different avenues in your career, earlier on, what advice do you have for emerging entrepreneurs, for young women especially, that are looking to try to figure out what their path looks like? What things might you share that have been profound for you and impactful?
Sure, thanks. Well, that's a mother load, but taken well. Gut check. If you know, you know. It's in you. And if you have to second guess and ask a lot of people, is this something I should continue or pursue? It's okay to do that. And it's okay to use your mentors wisely. But when you can decide it for yourself, there is no greater glory. And when you can reflect on that and bring it forward to others, don't be afraid to say thank you. A lot of times I will mentor folks and I'm wondering, how are they doing? And I just wish I would hear from them. They don't have to have anything profound news or a big milestone promotion. Just the everydayness of the enjoyment of their life and their jobs is enough for me to hear back. Because I have mentored and provided internships and scholarships and all of that, as many, many people have. It's the thank yous along the way and making sure you touch base, even just with the smaller things, I think is a very valiant point. The other thing is, don't be afraid to say yes. Because
I love
you
that.
don't know how it will open. Crack the code. It's like the Wizard of Oz. You're, 1 minute you're in black and white, the next you're in this colorful wonderment of, wow, how did I get to do this? I have many pinch me moments. When we were at the hotel, we welcomed the president of Hungary. We welcomed, Brad Pitt, I'll just say it. We had this cascade of avalanche of people doing great things in their life. We also had scientists and humanitarians, and I've always found that the celebrity quotient is exciting and it gets people introduced. I'm very interested in people's daily lives. One time, Maggie Daley, in this very lobby, Maggie Daley said, as our First Lady of Chicago, said, "Steph, I just wish someone would ask me, what did you have for breakfast?" Celebrities are humans. And the more we understand, yes, it's great to have everything lined up and with the advanced team and work out those VIP details. So as an entrepreneur, is remember that all of these people are just people too. Call them, write to them, don't hold back. They love to tell their story. Buy their book and ask for their autograph, because not everybody gets to do that. And then you've cemented that relationship for life. It's a really a big advantage.
Wow, I love that. And I what you're saying is so true. It's just that humanity of, having that experience and being treated like a person, not a celebrity.
Correct. And by also letting other people in, because you asked, I think giving other people credit is really important. I have stood in so many rooms, hence the name I've Got Your Back, where my idea somehow rolled off somebody else's lips, and I am in the back, quite honestly, from smiley face to, boy, I thought I had a lot to do with that. And it's a bigger person that can say we. It's a singular person that just says I. I did say that I authored 3 books because no one else did it.
Right.
But I cannot do anything without the power of team. I think that's my dad's football coach mentality inside of me forever.
Oh, wow. That, I can see that. And, of course, I knew about the book. And it's interesting that we were even talking about earlier how, kind of how things shape you. And I think that piece of collaboration is so important. I know it is for me personally. And one thing we talk about a lot of times is who, not how. And I've really learned to embrace that in the last year or two. And, feel so fortunate to have so many friends such as yourself that have these phenomenal areas of expertise. And just like you said, you could go anywhere in the world and you would have somewhere to stay. But when you have a need, a business need, or even, some kind of, I serve on a board, any kind of need, there's usually someone that has the expertise to help with that in a really rich and genuine way that's beyond anything that I could ever do. So why not allow others to be a part of that journey too?
Sometimes we don't know how special what we have is for other people. In hospitality, we come to the great hotel, we do our thing, but taking that expertise and lifting it up and out, I had no idea the value of what that is like to teach it. And because being a teacher, I just needed to find a few subjects to teach.
There you go. I
It
love
just
that.
has sort of evolved that way.
Fascinating. It's funny, right as you were saying that, I can't recall where we were going, but I had this memory of somewhere when we were both here at the Allerton and we were going to some event and we ended up going to the Roby House on the University of Chicago campus, and you suggested it. And I can't for the life of me remember what the rest of it was, but you wanted to expose, I think it might have been myself and Anya perhaps, whatever it was, but to that experience, which was fascinating. I mean, I've certainly had so much exposure to Frank Lloyd Wright, buildings and homes since then, but I think that was probably the first one I was ever physically standing in.
Oh, well, I'm thankful for the opportunity. And sometimes people want to do something. They just need someone to give them a nudge. And I think being a concierge was the best part. It was all that knowledge could come out. Somebody would arrive from either very local or a distant land and say, what is there to do here? And then there's the guest who says, well, I'd like to go on an afternoon excursion. What do you have in mind? Well, we'd like to go to Niagara Falls. And then I learned diplomacy because you and I know that's not quite nearby, but it could be doable. So learning to still say yes with a firm hand and understand what is really an allegory for life. It's really being able to keep it going, but knowing what you're about, I think, is that self-reflection has been a gift.
Wow. Well, this has been so amazing. Thank you for sharing your story. It has been quite a journey. And I mean, I'm so proud of all that you've accomplished, and just glad to be able to share this with my audience as well. I hope they can check out your books. Now, you're still actively teaching. I know I myself like to still be a student even at my age, and I haven't taken a class in years, but I keep aspiring to do that. Maybe I will soon. So what are you teaching these days? How can people find you?
Roosevelt University, being a school on its own, has fantastic academic opportunities. All of your guests and anybody who follows you, Reagan, would be welcome to come into the classroom, whether it's the sports courses I've recently designed, where we watch the movie Moneyball, because it's all about business and baseball and Brad Pitt. There we go. Everything in life is full circle. And there's an opportunity in international tourism for people to come and judge at I call it a science fair table, where somebody would choose a city and they would study that city in the way of economics, transportation, culture, climate.
Wow.
So all syllabi and professorship now as full-time faculty, the big topic is artificial intelligence, which we have been using ever since we've all had a phone, whether it was land-based, anything that's plugged in. To me, when we really go back in the history books, We could debate that or not, but invitation to decide where AI fits. And because I'm a sort of a renegade teacher, I encourage my students to write their paper, write the same paper, and run it through a certain platform in artificial intelligence.
Wow.
But the assignment is the difference. What did the paper, how much did you grow? And what were the missteps that could have occurred with a robotic nature of someone else that you didn't have that experience except you? And the paper that they submit are the differences in the value system.
Oh my goodness.
So also Service Speaks, we're going to be on the book tour this whole season.
Wow.
Nothing like the holidays to boost up gift giving, and a few, not necessarily a TED Talk per se, but a film series as well is in the works.
Oh, amazing. Well, again, thank you so much for joining, for sharing your story. I hope everyone has enjoyed being introduced to Stephanie and what she's done and opportunities to connect. Thanks for following along, and hope to see you again online soon.